looked worn and it was beaten up and it looked lived in. There again, he just looks like an old train engineer. He just fits the part. He looks like he just got off the steam locomotive.
After an accident, Anderson is retired to the machine shop, where he is reunited with the remains of his engine. But it was a very trying film for Chaney. When he went on location from the warmth of California to Green Bay, Wisconsin, it was snowy. He caught a cold but kept on working in true Chaney fashion. The cold developed into walking pneumonia.
He would, some mornings he'd show up very late, very apologetic, and nobody really knew how sick he was. And finally, as the picture neared an end, he had to stay out for several days at a time. And finally, the picture was shut down, I forget, I think for a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, and then picked up again. But I don't think anybody on the company realized how terribly sick he was.
All right, everybody quiet, please. After the bell.
Sound had arrived, and Chaney resisted it. He wouldn't talk, he said, because it might destroy the mystery. MGM made a musical with all their stars except Garbo and Chaney, but Chaney had a number devoted to him.
Lon Chaney's gonna get you if you don't watch out.
The Phantom of the Opera was reissued with sound, but the Phantom did not speak. Universal wanted him urgently for Dracula. MGM gave Chaney a large bonus for signing a new contract, and Irving Thalberg chose his first sound film.
And so they picked The Unholy Three as Chaney's talking picture debut. And in reality, it was probably a good choice, because it gives Chaney the chance to now become
The man of 100 golden voices, Professor Echo.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you. Now, folks, if you'll just gather around a little closer now. Come right in a little closer. That's it. That's fine. That's fine, folks. Now, then, if you'll be real quiet, I'll see if I can get the little boy to say something.
Chaney had to sign an affidavit that all 5 voices were his, and not the work of voice doubles. He threw his voice, he imitated the girl, and even a parrot. As Mrs. O'Grady, he didn't try to fake the voice, he just spoke softly and chose the words carefully.
Oh, Rosie, will you come here, please? All right. Come right in, Rosie.
What's the big idea?
What's eating you now?
You're making a play for that guy.
Don't be silly. I like him because he hands me a laugh.
Yeah? Well, you keep on and I'll hand you a laugh. You get that?
In the courtroom, Mrs. O'Grady is under intense cross-examination.
Do you? In short, Mrs. O'Grady, you don't remember anything else except what you want to remember, do you?
Oh, I have such a headache.
Well, I'm sorry, Mrs. O'Grady, if you have a headache.
Thank you.
I didn't mean to make you nervous.
Oh, it's much better now, thank you.
You see, I'm only attempting to drive the truth.
Yes, of course.
Now, Mrs. O'Grady. See, Your Honor, an imposter, an osprey.
Order in the court.
And then, of course, at the ending was reshot. Originally, the ending was like in the silent version, where Chaney goes back to the sideshow. Rosie comes up and says, "I'm going to fulfill my part of the bargain." And Echo realizes that she really loves Hector. He says, "No, you go on." And as she starts to leave, he has the dummy says, "Goodbye, old pal," and she turns around and He's holding the dummy in his lap, and he waves the dummy's arm. And as she leaves, the dummy comes to Chaney's chest, and he puts his head down, and he begins to cry. And I talked with a man who happened to be working at MGM at the time, who just happened to sneak in on the set at that point. And he said Chaney cried real tears, like you wouldn't believe.
In the final scene, as reshot, Echo says farewell at the railroad station to Hector, Elliot Nugent, and Rosie, Lila Lee. By now, Chaney knew he had lung cancer.
Well, I guess Rosie wants to talk to you now, so I'll say goodbye.
Well, goodbye, kid. Good luck.
Irony of ironies. Here's the man who is, through this film, Harry Earls told me he was struggling to get along because of his health. There were some days where he just didn't have the energy to get through the day. And Hector, as a way of saying thank you, gives him a carton of cigarettes.
I brought you some cigarettes.
Oh, swell. Thanks, kid.
I don't know whether to laugh or cry.
Well, why don't you do a little of both? You know the old gag. That's all there is to life. Just a little laugh, a little tear. I'll send you a postal card.
It fades to black, and we see the end. That was Lon's last performance on the silver screen.
7 weeks after the film was released, Chaney died. He was 47 years old.
I remember it was my father saw it first on the placards, because it was quite a sensation and when he came in with the news, I couldn't take it in. I did think the end of the world had come. No more Lon.
The day he died, when I was 10 years old, was the end of the world. I thought, my God, Lon Chaney died here in 1930, and I'm only 10 years old. If he can die, that means me too. Huh? Nothing's safe. If this great man, this man taller than all the buildings in the world, who represents all the people in the world, if he can be taken away by death, then I'm vulnerable. And that was a terrible feeling to have.
The funeral service was held at the Cunningham and O'Connor Funeral Home in downtown Los Angeles. The eulogy was given by the chaplain of the Marine Corps base at San Diego. Hazel Chaney was in a state of collapse.
All studios in Hollywood halted work to observe a moment of silence. And at MGM, they had a color guard there from the Marine Corps, and they blew taps as the Marines lowered the flag to half staff.
Chaney was interred at Forest Lawn Cemetery at Glendale. No one knows the reason, but his crypt bears no name. Lon Chaney attains immortality, said a screen magazine at the time. No man in pictures, nor woman either, has won the wide space in the popular heart that Chaney could call his own. There never was an actor whose every gesture carried more feeling, more eloquence than Chaney. He will be missed not only by the producers, but by the millions who took him into their hearts.